You might not know this, folks, but company earnings calls are public information. And so even private corporations are required to make public their earnings calls if they are publicly traded. And so More Perfect Union got hold of an earnings call from friends of the show over at Raytheon. And so let's take a listen to this earnings call where they are projecting new revenue streams and opportunities now that World War III is brewing on two burners, both the Middle Eastern front and the Eastern European front. Here is some audio. These are the people who really run the world right here, and we're not going to see them. We're going to hear them. But this is pretty fascinating stuff here.
Christine Lewog of Morgan Stanley.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning, Christine.
So maybe moving to a defense question. You know, the White House is requesting $106 billion in supplemental spending for a number of national security priorities, which includes over $50 billion in investment for the U.S. defense industrial base. Looking at this request, you've got equipment for Ukraine, air and missile defense for Israel, and replenishment of stockpile for both. And this seems to fit quite nicely with the Raytheon defense portfolio.
Oh, good.
So how much of this opportunity is addressable to the company? And if the dollars are appropriated, when would be the earliest you could see this convert to revenue?
Goals.
All right, Christine, let me start on that. So, as I think I mentioned earlier in the conversation, we've seen about $3 billion of orders so far related to Ukraine replenishment, and that's really replenishing U.S. war stocks. We expect another $4 billion of orders in the next 2 years. Again, most of that will play out over the next 24 to 36 months in terms of delivery. So you won't see a big revenue pop even next year from this. As we think about this next tranche, the president's $100+ billion request, which is more than $40 billion for Ukraine, what you're going to see is the same things that we have been seeing, but in much higher quantities. So obviously, NASAM systems, which is the short-range air defense system, and the AMRAAM munitions that we're using there, we're going to see those orders pick up, we would think, significantly. The same is true with the Patriot air defense system. Again, those are GEM-T missiles that we supply for that. Those are in short supply today. So again, a big ramp there. But
big ramp. See, a big ramp up in production and orders. Business is booming. You know, I couldn't do this for YouTube because we would not be allowed to show this footage here anyway. But for Twitter, I might use this call as the soundtrack for a video showing the consequences of what they're talking about, which is babies with their heads cracked open, right? You know, parents mourning the loss of loved ones, little kids mourning the loss of family members. That's just in Gaza. Well, let's not forget that the death toll in Bakhmut was 75,000 people. So let's not forget that either. The human toll of all this is just apocalyptic. And here these guys are just talking about all the orders that they expect to be coming in. When they expect this will hit the bank account. Well, you know, I mean, look, we're going to get a lot of orders over the next 24 to 36 months, but we shouldn't expect to see a major boost in revenue until after those orders are fulfilled, you know. I mean, just talking so clinically about such horrific apocalyptic tragedy and devastation. There is just no humanity to these people at all. No. And these are who run the country. This is who runs the country. All the politicians are just front people for these people. These people are who run things.
Well, and that's, as you know, our piss poor excuse for a financial analyst. You know, I take in a lot of the kind of news that covers these kinds of people. And yeah, man, I mean, Jim Cramer was on just the other night saying, put your money into defense stocks, right? I mean, there's no... The way that they talk about international events, it's all about, and domestic events, it's all about what you can make a buck off, right? It's all about where to put your money. It's all about where the profits are going to be. And there's absolutely, very few people feel no need to justify themselves morally. So, you know, in the end, they hide behind protecting America, right? They hide behind patriotism when it comes up. When the morality comes up, we're making the weapons that defend America. Hey, you don't have to look far to see that narrative. Watch the Sunday morning roundtables. They're full of ads from defense contractors that are warm and fuzzy, and Americans living on farms and wheat fields, right? We're protecting America so that you can live your American life, right? It's all shit like that. But yeah, this is what it is. They're like the Ferengi, you know, so it's all credits for them.
Exactly. This goes on.
We're also going to see other weapon systems come into play, specifically around, you know, countering the unmanned air vehicles. And, you know, we have systems today like the Coyote, which is very effective in terms of short range dealing with these unmanned air vehicles. So again, I think really across the entire Raytheon portfolio, you're going to see a benefit of this restocking on top of what we think is going to be an increase in the DoD top line. Again, as we continue to replenish war stocks and also replenish some of the fleet in the Pacific. So that's SM2s, SM3s, and other munitions that are really a huge part of this backlog that we've got today.
Thanks, Greg. And how do we think about the margin profile of these incremental opportunities? Are these new contracts margin accretive?
I would no, actually, I wouldn't say they're margin accretive, nor would I say they're detrimental to margins. You know, these are going out at kind of normal cost type programs, right? So you're talking about margins, you know, 10, 11, 12%. Again, these are well known in terms of the cost of these systems. We've been producing them for years, so we know what the costs are. And again, I think, you know, again, it's helpful to overall margins, but it's not hugely accretive. Again, I think, Neil, 10 to 12 is kind of the sweet spot.
I think that's exactly right. These are mature, you know, programs that we've got a lot of history on. It's all about getting the supply chain ramped up to deal with the increased production that we expect.
All right.
Great,
So as the piss poor financial analyst, so what he's saying there is we're not a new business. We already have a lot of these orders baked into the value of our company. So you're just talking about an increase on top. You're not talking about as if we're a new company that just got a contract where you're going to see 500% growth in the value of the company. That's what he meant by that.
Right, because there's a track record, they have a pattern, they can sort of project out, you know, a certain amount of time in advance what they can expect. It's all about.
In other words, we're already selling 1,000 missiles.
Right.
This just means we're selling 1,100 missiles.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, there's a quote there. It's all about getting the supply chain ramped up to deal with the increased production that we expect. So these are the conversations that these guys have. They don't have conversations about dead kids, about genocide, about displacement. These are the conversations that they have. And these are the people who have the government's ear, right? Along with the Israel lobby, which makes this exponentially more dangerous in this case. But yeah, this is the world that these people live in. They are just completely divorced from the consequences of what they do. They'll never see it. They'll never feel it. They'll never be made to answer for it. You know, this is a relatively new thing where we're seeing these earnings calls posted online. We didn't used to see these things surface much anymore, but they are out there. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to go through them and see if there's anything of public interest. Because, look, most of these conversations are very boring, right? I mean, they're not easy things to sit through and see if there's stuff there that's in the public interest to know. A lot of it is just very sort of boring boilerplate shit that goes on internally at these companies.
Well,
but
in the third quarter, we saw some drop in China due to the COVID virus.
Right. Like, most of it is not bombshell stuff. But the people who go through it and publish this stuff, you know, it's long, thankless work, but, you know, it's good to do because you see, you know, clips drop like that, and it gives you a peek behind the curtain of just who these people really are. Who they are, you know, how uncaring they are, how inhuman they are. I mean, they really are.
Well, that's what really strikes you, because you listen to this and they all live in a world where nobody's ever going to call them out for being monsters, right? Because, you know, this will get picked up by the financial press, and then you get Jim Cramer. Yeah, so there was a really interesting call from Raytheon where they were talking about ramping up their margins, so you should buy today, right? There's no ethics, and you'd be called a fool if you raise those kinds of questions, right? You're not a serious person. You're not a trader. You're not an investor if you start asking questions like that.
Please clap.